Hey, it's George Fourie. Welcome to the Martial Arts Media Business Podcast. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about how to attract more adult students, how to get more adult students on the mats, and what to do if your ad campaigns aren't working. So this is a conversation and question that comes up often, and we're going to dive into the details and going to give you a simple solution on how to do this. You're probably going to kick yourself when you hear it, but it's that simple. But in order to execute the simple strategy, we're going to have to take a bit of a broader approach and give some context about how the whole strategy works and fits together. So we're going to dive right in. Make sure you hang around to the end, and I'll share with you a really cool PDF resource with 9 different conversation starter strategies that can elevate this process and get you much better results. All right, let's jump in. So not sure what this is like for you, but most successful school owners that we work with and the school owners that have got a fair amount of a solid student base don't really struggle to attract the kids. It's more a question of how do we get more adults training and how do we get more adults on the mat? Now, there is the rare case that this is in reverse, right? Depending on what type of club you run and what type of style you have, what type of style you teach, maybe your focus is 100% adults and not so much kids. So there's obviously the rare occasion, but generally speaking, this is the case. So what do you do if you want to attract new adult students? So we talk about this in our partners group often. And typically when we start working with school owners and we start looking at the on-ramp process of how we're going to elevate, attract the right students, increase the signups and retain more members, it's easy to lean towards, well, the adults is the student base that we need. And so if we want to go run ad campaigns, we want to run directly for adults. Now, this could be both good, but also not so good, because if you've never actually run ad campaigns before, running it for adults is way harder, right? So it is way harder to run ad campaigns for adults. And if you haven't mastered the process yet, then it will be a bit harder. So it's always better to start with what's easier, what works, which is campaigns for the kids, and then graduate yourself up to running ads for adults. And the only reason for this is just getting used to and accustomed to the system. Well, how do we pick the right ads? What is the right media, the right images? How do we split test them? How do we make sure that we pick the right ones so that we reduce our cost per lead? And then how does the whole follow-up work? Now, most school owners like yourself don't really have a problem signing people up when they show up and when they're in front of you, but you still got to get them to show up. So working that whole process of making sure that all the leads that you speak to are actually going to show up, and you can take the whole process from there. So that's probably the first pitfall to watch out for. If you want to jump straight into running ad campaigns for adults, it's totally doable, and our clients do this successfully, but there is a steeper learning curve to really master it and get it nailed down. All right, so that's the first thing. So let's jump into the solution. Well, where do you start? Well, the good news is if you want to attract more students and you've already got a client base of kids that are training with you, then you already have the perfect pool of prospects waiting for you. Right? And that is obviously the parents. So the parents are the people that are paying the fees, and hopefully you've got a fairly good relationship with them and the students are enjoying the training. And so if that's the case, a cross promotion is the perfect way to get more adult students on the mats. So where do you do this? Well, there's a good time to make an offer and a great time to make the offer. Good time is to, if you haven't yet, go make the offer right now. And I'll give you an idea of how you can do that. The better time to do it is getting your timing right. So I'll tell you a little story. Now, I'm not a big car guy. I love a lot of other things, surfing, drums, jiu-jitsu, obviously. But I'm not a big car guy. I'm more like the A to B practical. Where we live, an SUV 4x4 type thing is essential. Not essential, but it's great to have, right? Because we've got the space, we've got the beaches and so forth. So anyway, we were in a market for a new car a couple of years ago. And Most people are pretty fearful of walking into a car yard. I love being in sales and marketing situations because I feel there's always room to learn. There's always something that you're going to pick up, some little technique, or in this case, a reminder of something that you might have forgotten about. So in context of this, so anyway, we look at a car and we purchase the car and we sit down with the sales rep and we've just bought the car. Now, if you think back to the last time that you bought something significantly, something of significance, something that you really wanted or desired, there's some level of emotional high that you feel once you've made that purchase, right? There's a bit of a dopamine hit. You feel good. And so we're sitting there and obviously we feel good. And the sales rep asked us, so you've got the car, have you thought about tinting the windows? I thought, no, probably not. Are you looking at traveling locally? You might need a tow bar for trailer or caravan. I thought, oh yeah, we probably do. Do you want this? Do you want that? Do you want the roof racks? Oh yes, of course, I surf. I definitely need the roof racks. And so goes the upsells, right? Do you want this insurance that you probably don't need and your other insurance covers it, but this insurance sounds cooler, so do you want to get this one? You know what I mean, right? But it wasn't done in a distasteful way because it wasn't like it was like in internet marketing terms, I think it's called upsell hell. You just go through all these upsells and it's ridiculous. But as long as the upsell is actually complementing the purchase that you just did, it's pretty good, right? And in this case, we've just spent a big chunk of money on a car and all these little add-ons are really just providing extra value. So it feels kind of like a no-brainer. So that begs the question. So when is the best time for you then to make this offer to parents? Well, it's just when the kids have signed up. So one thing probably to consider is let the sign-up process go through first, focus on the one, and it's the old concept, right? You can't focus on two things at the one time. Focus on the kids. They're there to sign up and then transition over to the adults and just ask the question. Just ask, what about yourself? Have you ever trained martial arts before? And just open up that topic of conversation. If there's ever going to be a good time to open that topic of conversation, it's going to be in the heat of that moment, right? Because they've just signed up their kids. They're probably happy with what they see, what they've experienced, and the kids are happy. And you're probably going to have the kids say, yeah, mom, yeah, dad, how about it? So that's a quick, just short way of doing it. It's kind of like thinking as well of the McDonald's concept of, would you like fries with that? It's just an add-on to the offer that makes life better for everyone. So when do you make an offer? Well, when you've just made one. Now, I want to give you something that can make this a lot simpler. So another little backstory. So one of our top clients, Shane McMahon from Australian Karate Academy, when we started working together, he sent me a message on Facebook. I just got a friend request and Shane sent me a message and he says, hey, I just listened to your podcast episode number 44, and I did this thing that you said, and I've just signed up 2 new students. I was like, wow, that's awesome. Awesome, number one, that he listened to the podcast. But more importantly, number 2 is he actually took action and implemented the strategy right there and then. And so we got talking a little while ago, and we're talking about these little conversation starters, right? Because essentially all that you are doing when trying to sell something is you actually just trying to start more conversations, because the conversation will lead to the conversion, right? So how do we start more conversations? And so in our partners group, we got working on, well, if that's the case, then how do we just start more successful conversations? How do we get more conversations going? And so we created a tool and a resource which we call conversation carrots. Think of a carrot, it's something that you dangle in front of someone, and it's a way to start conversations. And so what we did is we created 9 variations of this. It's real simple. It's just ways to start conversations and move things along. If you have a list of prospects that maybe haven't responded to you in a while or haven't engaged, This resource will be perfect for that. So you can send out an email and you can just start a conversation, either with directly making an offer or starting a conversation that's going to lead to the offer. It's called Conversation Carrot. And depending on if you're watching this video on the website, button is below. But if you're listening to this on YouTube or Spotify or iTunes or anywhere else, go to martialartsmedia.com/130. So that's the numbers 130 for episode 130. And click on the big button, download the resource. Let me know what you think. That's it. And if you got some great value out of the show, please do me a favor and just hit the share button wherever you got it, or leave us a great review. Always welcome. Always great to hear from any of our listeners, especially if you're implementing anything that we share and get results from that. All right. Thanks so much for listening, watching. See you on the next episode. Cheers.